And, there are times where there's some items, right, that are non-negotiables that we need. And there are times when there's items that, we might not need, but it sure would make us feel more comfortable if we've had them. And that's kind of how that's built, if that makes sense.
So Jason, about the amount of earnest money,
1%.
1%, so you keep that, okay.
We keep that. A lot of times when we go under contract, right? If you've ever called and talked to an operator, you can tell if they know what's going on in their property or if they don't. And I love the mom and pops that are like, oh, lot 13, that's Sharon Smith. She's been there since 1972. Her rent was this and that. Okay, they know what they're talking about. You can tell who doesn't. So, literally we'll just use our gut and take their word for certain details if they seem knowledgeable. And if they don't, then we won't. Might be necessary to ask for, T12 or their personal property inventory or tax returns. But one of the hardest part about finding parks is sifting through all that nonsense. And that's something that we're pretty good at, I would say. And we try to take all that work out of it for our strategic partners so they don't have to do it.
And talking about strategic partners, who are strategic partners for you, Jason?
Oh, I can't release their names, but no, just guys that look.
No, I
one of them you're good friends with. He kind of mentored me. That might have been one of my first deals ever with
okay, so this is someone who would just really be buying majority of your deals in a certain area. Would that be fair statement?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, we don't really have criteria when it comes to that. We do the initial diligence on the seller, on the new buyer. I mean, I feel morally obligated to the seller because I've spent so much time with them to make sure that we produce on the original purchase agreement that we executed with them, meaning they're going to get their check in X amount of days. So I do want to make sure that it's someone that's capable of doing it. And there's 10 or 12 questions you can ask real quickly just to kind of figure out if that individual has the bandwidth to fully comprehend what they're taking on. I mean, the first one is, have you been to the boot camp? There's just so much information, as you know, and a lot of it you can't learn unless you actually experience it and you're living it day to day. It's a weird industry.
And talking about strategic partners and just doing deals, so I understand that initially you will put them under contract with the intention of purchasing for yourself. Is that correct?
So yes.
And I'm sorry, let me just and if not, would you say to the seller right away that you may be wholesaling it? Is this disclosed right away or later?
When I was by myself and I first started, it was hard for me to grasp the concept to say, like, we're interested in your property if I knew that we weren't going to purchase it. But we are in fact interested in their property because we do have something to gain from it. And we are looking in that area for a specific reason, and we just happened to come across their park, found it to be profitable and a deal that was able to be grabbed and moved. And then we kind of connect the individuals that need to be connected to make that transaction happen. Does that answer your question, or did I totally skip over it?
So if I understood correctly,
Oh,
yes, you
so
have a
when I
clarification.
was by myself, I was maybe had 3 or 4 deals every 3 or 4 months, right? It's the law of averages, the law of numbers. And I had the time to baby those deals. And in the beginning, Kat, to start, it was like, hey, we're kind of interested in your property. And then if it came up, we would talk about it. If it didn't, we wouldn't. A lot of times it never even comes up. They just kind of assume. But what happened in November when we started to exponentially expand because our systems allowed for it is this hybrid model developed where we're like, our whole motto is like elephant in the room, get it out of the room. So if we're going to get it out of the room, let's get it out of the room now. So now we do have that hybrid approach, Kat, where we'll either, we're going to buy the deal, and if we don't, then we're going to assign it. We'll tell them that up front. It's also the first 2 sentences of the contract. Or we'll engage in a conversation. In some deals that I have, that are under contract, are under contract with basically a consulting agreement where we do have the ability to take offers. But if you ever see me say under contract and off market, we're under contract for that amount. So we've already negotiated to that point. But there are some deals where there's, we're just representing the seller because they don't want to pay a broker.
Okay. Well, guys, I would invite you to drop any questions you have here in the chat to make sure we get to them. I saw another question from Barry. He's asking if most of the parks you're getting from cold calling. Is that still the case?
Yeah, Barry. Actually, all of them are. Nick will get mad at me from saying this, but we pay Rhino like $14,000 a year, I think, and that's kind of a one-stop shop for skip tracing. I believe that there's enough, even with a limited supply, there's enough to go around. So we should all be working towards the same goal, which is we're all trying to create an empire together for ourselves, for our own personal lives, our family, our children. There's enough to go around where we can all help each other and still get out on top. One of the things that I quickly did when I became established in the industry is I grabbed all like the top 18 wholesalers that I could see, and I put them all inside a private Facebook group. And before you get in there, you have to agree to the gentleman's rules of doing business here. And it's worked out really well. It's kept everybody honest and everybody helps each other. And you leverages each other's networks instead of trying to leverage somebody out of a deal. It's better that way.
Okay. Sounds good. So cold calling and just really what I liked is you said, yeah, we just grind harder. And I think isn't that the way to do it once you set up your ops, which is not that complex. The theory is very clear, but then you just have to stay consistent and grinding it out because the follow-ups is everything, and you guys are clearly staying true to that. So I know.
Yeah, everything comes from a cold call, Barry. Through our auto dialer, we use Mojo. I think just one of the advantages we have is we're able to connect with the owner on their cell phone instead of dealing with park managers, et cetera.
And you would say that Reonomy is the tool that helps you connect that way?
No, I would say do your own research. So I'm not held accountable. It's very hard to navigate. They offered to use us as a case study because their systems really supported commercial real estate deals and not mobile home parks due to zoning and all that other stuff. It's hard to find it through their search parameters. But using a combination of lot size, potential buildings on the parcel, and just taking the average of what 15 mobile homes would take up on a normal parcel size, given there's not a huge backwoods connected to it. We kind of tweak the parameters to tweak their system to our benefit.
Okay. Well, Jason, I want to make sure that if anyone else has questions, please, guys, put it in the chat, and we will make sure to get them answered. I know, Jason, is there a specific, from your experience so far, is there kind of specific profile of the buyer that is kind of ideal buyer for you, for your deals, if you don't mind sharing?
So we are so spread out. We see deals from 15 pads all the way up. We're working on close to an 8-digit portfolio. So our buyers are literally spread out all across the board. And it really depends on, at this point, their criteria. Unless I've done a really poor job negotiating on the front end, we don't ever really lose a deal because we're of the impression that there's two people that are going to buy that park, right? It's either going to be us or it's going to be someone else. And if it's going to be someone else, this industry is small enough and connected by almost 3 degrees of separation at the most, that we can, through strategic marketing tactics, we can reach all ends of the US and touch all the potential buyers on the deal. And that probably was the biggest hell of the past 2 years, was putting together that solid of a buyer's list, almost to the point where I know, like, hey, it's in this part of this. I know who's going to want to look at it, and it might not work for them, but I know it's in their region. It's really just about communication and just staying in touch, really.
Sure.
We always appreciate when someone says, hey, thanks for sharing this deal. We don't like it because of this. Instead of never responding.
Okay, that's a really helpful point. Definitely very helpful. I remember we had, maybe a couple of years back, we had John Kirkone on with us, and he was very specific about who their ideal buyer is. Said, no first-time buyers. We want someone earnest money day one, like 20,000 minimum, something very
but it's
very
like
firm.
We know from our parents that if you don't first help other people, this isn't like some cliche bullshit, that if you don't help other people first, you're not ever going to get ahead. So it might seem greedy to approach it that way and say, hey, if I just help everyone, I'm going to get ahead. But that's the reality of it. Like, just help everyone else and you'll get ahead. No doubt about it. There's times where I find myself complaining about 16-hour days, or, I've lost 5 deals in my career. If I was to go to a bar and, open a beer and look at the guy to my left and say, man, I lost this deal that was 20 grand, but I have 25 more of them. Like, he'd probably beat me up, right? That's not a bad problem to have. So you got to kind of check yourself every day. And, we're pretty hard on ourselves and pretty demanding of ourselves.
Yeah, and Andrea put something here. She said, Zik, I would say, I would take a bet that it's Zig Ziglar then, says if you help enough other people to get what they want, you will get everything you want. So yeah,
Yeah, we
thank you,
reap what we
Andrea.
sow. Yeah,
Yep,
for sure.
excellent. Guys, any other questions you have to Jason specifically? The reason I'm asking if you can hurry up and just put them here in the chat, because I also know Khalid had a deal he wanted our input on, and I thought that maybe while we have Jason here, we could use his skills and maybe help Khalid with a quick evaluation.